Today we're going to take a look at the 2022 Honda CRF110F. We'll talk about where this little 110cc dirt bike that replaced the CRF70F back in 2013 fits into the current trail bike lineup, and we'll go over its specs and features as well as what Honda changed for this year. Plus, we'll start it up and show you what it sounds like and a lot more. But first, if you guys find any info in this video helpful, please take a second and hit the like button. Liking the video and commenting below really helps with growing this channel through YouTube's algorithm, and I really appreciate the help. So first up, where does this 110 fit into Honda's current CRF model trail bike lineup? The first thing to keep in mind when looking at Honda's dirt bikes is the last letter after the engine size and their model name, as that tells you what it was designed for. The F models are Honda's regular, run-of-the-mill models that don't have a ton of performance behind them, but with that, they also have the least amount of maintenance you'll need to worry about and cheaper price tags too. And with that being said, let's quickly run through these models and then we'll dive more into this bike specifically. The first model that starts the lineup off is the CRF50F with an MSRP of $1,649, and it's the last carbureted bike in the lineup. And then we jump up to the CRF110F that we're looking at today, which is the last step up that still has a semi-auto clutch like the 50, and it comes in at $2,499. Then you have the CRF125F, which is where you get into a real clutch, at $3,249, and then the big wheel version of that 125 bumps you up to $3,649. And then last but not least, we have the largest F model, and that's the CRF250F at $4,749. And that's it for the F model trail bikes. Now Honda makes a million different CRF models, and if you didn't see the one you're looking for, check out some of my past videos where we dive into each one. I want to take a quick second and say thank you to Southern Honda Power Sports for opening their doors to me and allowing me to come pick through their inventory for these videos. They are a massive Honda Power Sports dealer here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with tons of inventory from new Hondas to used Harleys and everything in between that they sell to people from all over the USA. So check out the link in the description below and head over to their website to see if they can save you some money on your next toy. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into some more info on this 110. Now, do you have any options when buying this bike?
Nope.
What you see here is what you get. So what did Honda change for 2022? Two things. The only changes come in the way of all red plastics now instead of a mixture of red and white, plus new graphics too, so these bikes will match the CRF race bikes you'll see on TV. And thankfully there wasn't a price increase this year like most of the other models, so its MSRP stays the same at $2,499. Now let's jump into the chassis and suspension. It has a twin spar steel frame that was revamped in 2019, inspired by the frame architecture of the CRF 250 and 450R race bikes, with Honda aiming for that perfect balance of rigidity and give that's needed for a trail bike like this. And bulletproof isn't a good enough word to describe the chassis on this thing. Us grown men that haven't really grown up use these as pit bikes, and they can take an absolute beating if you check out what some of these guys put them through. It's definitely a testament to the strength behind this little platform. It tips the scales at 169 pounds, and that's full of all fluids, including its 1.9 gallon steel fuel tank. You're looking at a 25.9 inch seat height, which is slightly lower than the CRF70F it replaced, and for comparison, the next step up is the CRF125F at 29.1 inches, and the next step below this with the CRF50 puts you at 21.6 inches. The wheelbase is nice and short at only 41.9 inches while having a 6.7 inch ground clearance, and its total length is only 60.7 inches with its width coming in at 26.7 inches. When it comes to suspension, you have a non-adjustable 31mm conventional telescopic coil spring fork up front that brings in 4.3 inches of travel, while in the rear you have a single Showa shock that brings in 3.8 inches of travel, and you guessed it, it's not adjustable either, but that's par for the course when we're talking about a kid's trail bike in this price range. When it comes to brakes, sadly we're still stuck in the 1900s, and it doesn't have a disc brake up front, at least like the 125, but it has a 95mm mechanical drum brake up front like the 50. Now when it comes to the rear, you guessed it, another 95mm drum brake, but that's to be expected as the only F model with a disc in the rear is the 250. And those brakes are helping slow down a 14-inch wheel up front with a 70/100 tire, and in the rear we downsized to a 12-inch wheel with a 80/100 tire wrapped around it. And next up, let's get into the engine and drivetrain, a setup that has already become a pretty legendary engine and drivetrain package despite it not even being a decade old yet. It has a 109.2cc air-cooled 80-degree single overhead cam and 2-valve single-cylinder engine. Now the only real changes to it since it was introduced back in 2013 is when Honda decided to throw a keen electronic fuel injection system at it in 2019, to which we were writing about years prior thanks to patent document filings we covered over at HondaProKevin.com. Now you have a 19mm throttle body and a 9:1 compression ratio that helps bring in right at 7.5 horsepower, which is plenty enough for kids and even adults to get in trouble with if you're not careful. But thankfully there is an adjustable throttle limiter. All you have to do is turn this little screw and you can keep them from going wide open. Now when it comes to starting this engine up, thankfully you not only have an easy button with the electric start, but you also have a backup kickstart. The engine is paired up to a semi-automatic 4-speed transmission. And what does that mean? You have your shifter on the left side with all the way down being neutral and then up through your 4 gears. Just click up and down and don't worry about using the clutch because it's an auto clutch that takes care of everything on its own, so there's no stalling the engine while learning how to ride. And helping the transmission send that power to the wheels is a 420 chain with 14 and 38 sprockets. Now thankfully maintaining this engine is super easy and won't break the bank, just like all of the other F models, as you can see here from the maintenance schedule in the owner's manual. And you do have a standard 6-month warranty that can be extended up to 48 months with the Honda Care Protection Plan if you wanted a little more protection. Now when it comes to electronics on this bike, there's not much to it, but just like all of the other F models, you have a keyed ignition. And with that, you have an indicator letting you know your key is on so you don't accidentally run your battery down, as well as a check engine light to let you know something is wrong. You also have a low fuel light right next to the key to let you know you're fixing to be pushing it, as you don't have a reserve to worry about flipping over to like on the older carbureted models. Now let's start it up and show you guys what it sounds like, and then we'll come back for a few more things. And that's the 2022 Honda CRF110F. In my opinion, if you're looking for something small that won't be too difficult to learn how to ride on, thanks to its semi-auto clutch and smooth power delivery, this thing is hard to beat. Now I can speak firsthand on the reliability. I owned a 2013 from new up until a few months ago when I had to sell it, and these things are tanks. It was used as my pit bike and I beat on that thing every time I rode it. Trust me, it did not live a good life, so to say. And it never gave me any problems. Resale values on these are insane. Even despite the whole Rona effect on used values going through the roof, they've always held their value extremely well, so you don't have a problem getting most, if not all of your money back, if you can get into one right. So if your little one ends up not riding it that long before it's time for an upgrade, you won't lose an arm and a leg. Another upside of this bike is it's the best-selling 12-inch pit bike / little dirt bike on the planet, so aftermarket parts and accessories are a dime a dozen. So much so that you could sink another $2,500 into one and not bat an eye if you enjoy modifying and tinkering with things. Now I could ramble on for another 20 minutes about this little thing, but I don't want to bore you guys anymore, and I'm curious, what do you think about the new updates for 2022? Do you prefer the old style more or this? Also, what would you guys like to see Honda change on the next 110 platform to really bring it to the next level? Personally, I think it'd be cool to see Honda build a hopped up pit bike version of this for adults, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section and I'll be joining in on the conversation too. But that's a wrap for this one. Thanks again for watching and supporting all of this. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.